interoperability panels for some reason. But I mean, it's a topic I really enjoy and I think is really interesting. So it's always fun. So maybe starting with you, Susannah.
I'm Susannah. I'm the product lead for the IBC team.
I'm John, co-founder of Hyperlane. Hyperlane is an open framework for interoperability, and in layman's terms, what do you want to take away from it? It's a toolkit that lets anyone in this room, anyone in the world, connect any chain on their terms. They can run all the operations, they can handle every bit of it themselves, or they can find someone to help them with that, which our development company is happy to do.
Cool. So here on stage, we have sort of very different upon itself a protocol, and then we have a framework for permissionless interoperability. Maybe starting, if we're going to start with some spicy here, how about each of you maybe tell us what you appreciate the most about like one other person here on stage, or at least the protocols that they're working on, vis-a-vis your own protocol.
All right, well, easiest answer for me, I'll give two answers. The easiest one, I'll start with that. I use Squid all the time when I need to get to some remote chain that we haven't added yet, and we need the gas tokens for it, and so it's just the easiest way to get it, and then we can fund our operations on that. So thank you, Fig, a power user.
Thanks.
And of course, Hyperlane couldn't exist without IBC. In fact, I would go so far as to say that we
building the future in the sense of we will get to ZK at some point, and you're making it happen. But Susannah, and we add a new Cosmos chain almost, it feels like almost every day, but it's probably a little bit slower than that, and that's thanks to the success of like IPC as a implementation and as a protocol. And Hyperlane, you guys have been doing really well in the sort of roll-up ecosystem, so we're going to be expanding there pretty soon, and hopefully we get to work together
Please.
soon
there. Yeah, we've dedicated our company to implementing IBC, so that speaks for its infrastructure apps are actually one that was like one of the first really usable ones out there.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I personally use Squid a lot, actually, when I need to go my default choice, like using XLR. And I think I really like how Hyperlane identified like a bit of a niche that's like an unserved part of the market, like having a fast integration for modular ecosystem, and not like having to be tied into like, I don't know, I think that there's a lot of people want to use like layer 0, but there's a lot of for like carving out your area of the market.
Well, it's good to know that there's like a lot of love and appreciation. I think it's very much in the vibes here of Nebula. Get everybody to agree on
Everyone's
what's
fighting the same fight.
Sorry?
Everyone's fighting the same fight. Everyone in this room here, like we are trying to increase demand for crypto, and like we're all going about it in our same.
Now maybe talking about the, going back to the title of this panel, which is, interoperability and abstraction. Are we talking about the same thing? We've talked a lot about has been building this orchestration framework to help abstract away like all of the complexities for users to interoperate and integrate with all the different ecosystems. We were all talking about this sort of brief abstraction. It feels like at some point, we're tending towards a race to the bottom where interoperability won't necessarily happen through oracles, through market more of like as an oracle than an actual means to an end. So like, do you agree with this statement that, interoperability and abstraction tend towards being the same thing? And if so, like what does that mean for maybe not IBC specifically, but like all these protocols on stage, like your respective business models and your ability to generate revenue, if the majority of
I'm happy to take it first. Generally agree with the statement that they are the same concept insofar as abstraction, right? If you think of any type of piece of technology, any type of application that you use outside of crypto, you never know what the hosting environment is, right? Like you're getting around. Uber doesn't work as reliably. And you don't know if you're running on GCP Europe 7 or if on AWS West 5, but in crypto we explicitly know that. And so if nothing else, interoperability is about the hosting environment, because right now we are, not only are we wildly aware of it, we need to hold an asset that is solely for the purpose of that specific hosting environment. So we're very intimately interacting with the hosting environment in a way that we're not in like any other mature area of technology. That's where I maybe long term, that looks different. But whenever someone's like, all that stuff, it's going to be a race to the bottom. Well, like in that race, as you get to the bottom, there's a lot of money to be made. It's, my time in crypto, I was working on a trading desk in Morgan Stanley, and there's a lot of people like teaching finance courses at university. The way, what they don't know is a lot of houses, a lot of school tuition get paid by the people who arbed their way to that low price. So there's a lot of money to be made in that time. Are exceptional, especially in like the long tail of chains, which Susannah earlier talked about, kind of this spring of new rollups that's happening. And yeah, I won't say more about it, but certainly a lot of people to give it a look if they haven't yet.
So I heard you kind of mention solvers, market makers. So I think you're going towards abstraction as intents versus message passing bridges. First of all, makers and liquidity providers need to have inventory. So in the end, inventory. So as the actual intent-based bridging industry grows, so does the more traditional industry itself. Now, I see it myself as a short-term optimization. Basically, what you try to do is divide the most urgent need for the end user, get your assets immediately on another chain, with the less urgent need of a liquidity provider being paid back. There's still a big advantage to improving the more liquidity provider. You're only paid back in a week. That means that managing your storage is actually extremely complex, right? Like managing your hundreds of millions across different chains with slow rebalancing is a pain. It's extremely dynamic. This is still, to me at least, an optimal solution. Like really, the best solution out there that we can do is most likely a light client-based, CK-based solution across rollups and chains with very fast finality, ideally like sub 1 second block times, while being able to generate proofs extremely quickly as well. And base bridges, getting your assets on another chain like within a second, without the need for anyone to actually manage assets across different chains. You can just burn and mint everywhere you go and still have that full security. It's quite complex to implement. It's actually really simple to reason about. The system where we're in right now, I think you guys at Squid probably realize this is actually extremely complex to reason about, like XLR, because they allow anyone to transfer from any chain into any chain, needs to actually manage the assets that they have stored somewhere, and sometimes transfers will fail chain and it needs to start rerouting. So really the golden solution here with burn and mint doesn't require this.
Yeah, I think the value accrual is really tempting to go into this. Don't make any money, and then the wallets, or at least the APIs, plugging into the order flow, and then the Ethereum L1 essentially, or Bitcoin are the only places which get value. But I agree that on the way to that end state in the middle, there's a lot of money to be made. I think this is really interesting how in Intense you don't actually need to bridge funds, and the market maker is able to fill an order on the destination chain just out of their own inventory, and they'll need to rebalance, like you say, but then and they've got so much more inventory. You don't need, they have the liquidity there. But I think going into a world of isn't going to be on all of those chains, so we'll need.
You think Binance
liquidity.
won't be on all those chains?
Not
No,
as
I
fast.
don't. You think? Yeah, maybe.
I mean, Binance has like a lot of listings, and I mean they're growing.
Yes.
I mean, maybe not Binance, but they might be able to get most of that inventory on like the top.
I was thinking more from an infrastructure point of view that they have to spin up nodes and security, like custody, and on all these chains. And there's a few different players probably.
I mean, like if you're using OKX or Binance to basically rebalance, then you're just using the centralized exchange as a bridge. Just doing deposit and withdrawals, but with different chain IDs when you send it to the API.
Yeah, exactly. It's not obviously not what we want as decentralized infra, but the point I want to get to with the Intense is that the thing with the Intense is you don't end up with as many messages going across these. I think is really important is that you still need collateralization of assets across all of the CRUDA tokens, which have which are securing assets, so or tokens, protocols, whatever. So we'll still need, IBC does secure the projects around it in some way, I think. I mean, you guys have your own value accrual ideas, but.
Well, I mean, like, for IBC, it's like the protocol doesn't extract any value. So I kind of do see interoperability as like somewhat of a race to the bottom, like long term, because like for a user, it's like all they really care about is that they ultimately, and Obviously I believe in like client-based interoperability, just as like a core component of these decentralized. If you get like a fast fill from a market maker, like that's actually just a better experience for you. Like you don't actually care that like underneath the settlement might take like, a few days. At that top layer of, are you going to get that experience that you want?
What I'm hearing here is that perhaps there's a future in which retrading is mostly solved by this sort of like intent-based model, but that message interoperability protocols that allow for token transfers would mostly be used by market makers and institutions moving liquidity, moving large.
Use the underlying IBC implementations, for example, to liquidity rebalance themselves. And right now, users rely usually on an oracle to get refunded. If you use a cross and you set your fee too low, it's basically going to be stuck in limbo forever until the UMA oracle tells the protocol that it hasn't been filled at all. And for that, you can use live clients as well to basically prove that it hasn't been filled in time.
Yeah, something you mentioned earlier remind me of a topic we were discussing earlier, which was like, this. I think in the abstraction narrative, abstraction idea, like the idea that users aren't going to care which. On this idea of like, okay, if you're using some website or you're ordering something on Deliveroo, you don't care whether you're using Amazon or Google, and because people actually do care, which chain they're settling on, right? If I'm bullish on one ecosystem or a particular asset, I might like, I'm part of that community, number go up for my bags, I might get some airdrops, I might get like some NFTs or some other benefit for utilizing that chain. So, in that context, does this kind of like, even make sense? And like, how does the user interface abstraction account for that?
Of course it does. Of course they care. So in what you just described, people who are going to that chain to do that thing, they don't care about it settling there. They don't even know what that word means. That is the app. That is ordering the drink. Right? And so insofar as the app that is built is designed to be something where they don't care about it and they don't need to be affiliated with the asset, that's where they might not care. But again, so I hate the use of the word intense. I think it's like very, this is one of the things I hate about the industry the most through 7 years, is like we love using these very pretentious do things, and we do them. So I want to use that app. I want to use that thing, and that is like what I care about. What I don't necessarily care about is like, let's say someone builds like it's on Monad. I'm coming for the app, but like if I'm staking Monad because I want to earn like a staking yield, I care, I want to know, and that is the app, right? That is the thing that like I intend to do. That is the thing I'm trying to express. That's what I come there for. It's either this or that, but it is not. I don't think it's like that, right? There are things that we think of in circles like this as like being purely infrastructure in crypto as applications. Like, I want to do that staking thing. I want to, maybe get rewarded for using that chain. And so there, in that case, I care. But if I came for a specific app, like in that case, I generally don't inherently care. That's kind of how I think about it.
But I think it's like, how do you then define like when someone's going to care or not? Because, for example, like token-centric, whenever we think about interoperability, we're not necessarily thinking about like interoperability as a means to access applications on another chain. We're just pretty much talking about like moving one token from chain A to chain B. So I think increasingly when you're actually using interoperability, whether like people would care about like what's going on under the hood or not, because right now it's like your outcome is just like this token would appear on another chain. But it's like, you know, if I like thinking about like the way I just like use things today, it's like you mentioned like if you're ordering like what restaurant it's coming from, and actually I do care about the platform that I'm using to like make my order, because there's all this like reliability and how much I trust the platform is like the burger's actually going to arrive in like 30 minutes like it says it is, or and I, you know, depends on whether like you're thinking of ETH as like an application, or whether it's just ETH as like settlement and like going through that.
I think if users really cared that much about the underlying chain, we wouldn't have as many users keeping all of their tokens on centralized exchanges all the time. I think that shows that in the end they prefer good UX and individual chain. And even if they know about the chains they're using, they usually just associate it with the wallet. Let's be honest. Like they'll say like Ethereum has a shitty wallet, Solana has a good one, and keep it at that. And I don't think it goes much further than that, and I don't think it should in the end. Like finally, users should like the app that they use, which right now they think is Binance. Right? They see that as the same as a DeFi application, and once we finally can do that, then we've achieved chain abstraction as well. Like I think it's going to be like an almost immediate flow into that.
Yeah, we think about this all the time because we, in our front end, users are coming to do all sorts of things, right? And often the chain is the product that you're coming to use. You've just got your TA airdrop and you move it somewhere else, or you have to go and claim it, get some gas. So then the chain is the product, but then there's the Binance use case in something, and they don't really care where it is. They have no idea whether it's more secure on Polygon versus Ethereum or on Cosmos. So then we want to move towards, we want to have one platform. And Squid, we want to do this where anyone, no matter how used to crypto they are, they can come, they can get their fiat into the crypto ecosystem, buy any token on any chain. Because previously, you would have to go to Binance to get all sorts of different tokens. Is a really difficult journey on most places. Squid's making it a bit easier, but we've still got a long way to go. So I think and then you've got the final use case that we've gone airdrops where the chain is the product, just getting tokens, getting rich. And then the final one, we partnered with a bunch of payments providers who are doing like real payments in all sorts of places. You know, you can connect it up to Visa, pay with fiat in the real world. And those people don't want to know anything about crypto, right? They're just, you know, one of our partners is, you know, they have 400,000 users sending money to each other, and it's US dollars, but they have no idea it's crypto, and they don't know the chain, they don't even know it's crypto, it's money settlement and state of abstraction too. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's since like we use Revolut from time to time. Sorry, not Revolut. Wise, formerly TransferWise. Some guy needs to get paid. Gives me his Revolut account. $1,000. Underneath there is a very convoluted and complex network of things that, you know, different financial institutions, different local entities that like facilitate. He doesn't know about it. Just worked. And so in that sense, hey, here's an application where like we didn't care about the path that it traversed. And so there will be like a Farcaster where we don't concern ourselves, but just kind of, I guess, like most of us ended up echoing in the end, that the ones that concern the chain, again, like when you're there to earn the airdrop, or you're there to like stake something, that in that sense, that is the app that you're going for, and there you do care.
Here will become a commoditized piece of infrastructure utilized by applications that are built on top.
That would be pretty great.
In a wise format, sort of application.
Honestly, that would be great, right? Like, that its underlying parts are like more commoditized than Visa, and it is one of the most valuable things in the world. And because of it's so incredibly difficult to displace. And if you think about it, like we're talking about the intense part of the market a lot, you know, in the last few days, and you have people complaining about paying $20 on like a $5 million transfer. Meanwhile, Visa is charges the merchants like close to 3%. And so like talk about staying power, and talk about like, you know, if you read the history of Visa, there were so many, this is gonna be a race to the bottom. Well, like they still haven't found that bottom. That's like one of the most valuable things on the planet. And it's everywhere. And when I say Visa, no one needs to think for even more than half a second to know exactly.
So we've got 5 minutes left here. There's one question I wanted to ask, which is Celestia rollups are mostly not using IBC.
Yes.
And why how do we get into this situation? I mean, you're happy about Hyperlane being mostly used in
Fucking
Celestia, I guess.
stoked. I can tell you why. I can tell you exactly why too. It's they're not using it. It's just again, no, I
Well,
love what you're doing. You're a wonderful person. IBC is just very difficult to extend. Working to extend it, it's just difficult. And if it wasn't difficult, Hyperlane wouldn't exist, and IBC would be everywhere.
But I think the problem is like you're making a trade-off by most of the like roll-ups on Celestia don't have like fraud-proof support. They're not using ZK, right? So it's not enabling trust minimized interoperability. Had to enable that with their launch. Like we're ready. Like we developed conditional clients. We have a Celestia DA client ready. We have the WASM-like client. Then check if the blob is included with the Celestia client. But it's like, yeah, it's not ready. It's not ready to be told. There's issues with proving inclusion and exclusion of packet commitments. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame in my to enable that like natively by default. And you know, this gave opportunity to teams like Hyperlane to make a solution in the meantime. But yeah, I think it was the wrong decision from Celestia, to be honest. But that's my opinion.
Like it took some time to, at least for Union, get our stack to be modular and useful enough to deploy it in different ecosystems. Right now we have it such that it works for Arbitrum L3s, Base, Linea, and this took, to be honest, a year of R&D to get it to the space. And I feel also with IBC, the code base itself, although good, it suffered a bit going on around the ICF/Cosmos SDK stuff. At least we noticed that on our end, and I feel that that's why it lost a bit of momentum about 2 years ago.
Why? What was the problem?
Sharing of
Tenement to Comet BFT, we kind of had at some point, I feel like maybe not really this idea that it would be everywhere at the same time. And so the original code base itself was very much designed to be Tendermint only. And that took, I feel like, a year of like re-architecting to get it in that space to actually be widely applicable.
I didn't understand what you were talking about exactly.
Yeah, but
You can
again,
send a support ticket.
I mean, think he has a crack team of wizards, and it took them a year of R&D to figure this out, and that is an obstacle. Meanwhile, a month ago, I guess 2 months ago now, the largest oracle on Starknet, they never knew anything about Hyperlane. They ran into me at some place, and they're like, "What do you do?" I start telling them about it, and a month later, they had their code for the Starknet version of Hyperlane ready to go into audit. And that's a world of difference. And that's, again, first thing I said here, but like, you know, the relation principles, you have to make some trade-offs, but maximally extensible. And if not, you know, like, again, I know that team. It's hard work.
Yeah, although I would say like the Hyperlane protocol and the IBC protocol are very different in the sense of the security IBC provides, the edge cases it handles. Hyperlane's protocol is indeed extremely simple to implement, gets you started off very quickly. I sometimes, although I love it, also disagree if that's something everyone should be using.
Of course, yeah. There's
Seconds here, I think we may be extended by a minute. What are the trade-offs between Hyperlane and IBC that users?
Hyperlane's protocol is the simplest, like send a message over here, deal with if it has been received or not, if it's gone missing somehow. You need to write all that code yourself. So getting started with implementing extremely simple, etc. You realize that now you slowly start to implement IBC yourself. And that's the point where you kind of go, maybe everyone should have been using a more bigger protocol out of the box.
no, he's not wrong. We don't do the axe. They're like, they lose their mind about the axe. Turns out, you know, in the last 4 months, Hyperlane processed 4 million messages, did 2.5 billion of volume, spread to 50 chains. By some people in the audience here are running Hyperlane themselves on their own chain and extending it to others, and they survived without the axe. But the definite issue that a bunch of folks with IBC backgrounds implementing with Hyperlane is like the ACK. They just love the ACK.
But I think it's like, you know, if we're in a space where we're just like sending tokens and you just send them and you don't really care what happens, then yeah, it's like fine, you don't need the acknowledgement. But I think interoperability will be more than just like, you know, fire and forget.
No, for sure. But, you
yeah.
know, Aave is, I think most people here would agree, Aave is, if not the most consequential app in crypto, at least one of the 3 most consequential apps. Aave, Layer 0, and Chainlink, they don't seem to care about the ACK.
Yeah, we just, for example, had intent-based protocols as an example of something where we think it's going to move, and there literally the ACK is what you use to pay back the market maker for of chains. This whole situation becomes very complex, but it's not just about the ACKs.
I think we'll have to end it there. Thank you so much, guys. This